Guys, this is Madhvi from TaroticallySpeaking.com, and today I have a very lovely deck that I'm gonna do a quick review slash flip through of. Those of you who have been following me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or who are on my Facebook group, I'm sure you guys have noticed that I've been doing my card a day posts with this lovely deck called the Epic Tarot, and I am going to be doing a review of this deck today. As you can see from the cover itself, you can make out this deck has a theme, and the theme is fantasy, epic fantasy or high fantasy, whatever you may call it, but that's kind of the overall tone. And the publisher of this deck is none other than Scarabeo. All right, so let's get right into it. The book, there is a little white book, of course, and these are the cards, right? And of course the box is pretty sturdy, as you can see from the inside. There's none of those weird edge things that, like if this was on the bottom, then it would interfere with you putting the book in there and then you had to struggle. I always have to I hate struggling like that, and I love it when you have boxes that are constructed in this way that you can put the book in either before or after, and you don't have to struggle with it kind of bending at the bottom and stuff as you're putting it in the box. So I like it. It's a good box. It's a good enough box, I would say. I don't know how long term it'll last, but hey, decks, books, boxes, you can always get a bag for it. And this is your LWB. These are your cards. Let's just quickly look at the LWB. It is a Scarabeo deck, so you will have everything in English, Italian, Spanish, French, and German. So you have English stuff going on from page 3, I guess, to page 22 or 23. So you have till page 22, right? So from here, page 3 to page 22, you have the English version. So of course, if you read or write in any of these other languages, then you gotta go there and see. Now the Epic Tarot does have a few things which are a little bit different. This is a fantasy world, as it says, presents a fantasy world and all of that. They have there's basic concept here that there are, imagine a fantasy world where there are 3 gods: knowledge, creativity, and war, and 3 goddesses: magic, receptivity, and love. And each of these gods and goddesses manifests in a different form, or put another way, show us a different facet of their being in the 3 planes: material, intellectual, and spiritual. So they do talk about it, but now here's the thing. This is something you can explore if you're really getting into this deck, right? Just for my reference, I made sure I marked the god and the goddess and everything. And then there's a seeker, right, which is the energy of the fool, right? There's a final deity in this world. The seeker is the odd one, the one that doesn't fit into these relationships. So so the point is, you can really get into this if you want, or you can totally skip it. That's fine too. That's not a problem. Because this deck, I believe, does follow just the standard to a certain degree. Obviously, within the context of the theme, it does follow the Rider-Waite pattern. So even if you skip this part, you can still play with this deck. But if you get into it, it's even more fun. Now, when it comes to the court cards, you will see something different. The page is depicted as a unicorn. The knight is depicted as a griffin, the queen as a phoenix, and the king as a dragon. So that's there. When we come to the flip through, we'll go through it, right? And then so on and so forth. So there's a few things here you can look at. The book, and again, meanings, yes. The major arcana, the little concepts have been explained. And since they've kind of divided the first 7 cards as being part of the material realm, the next 7 set of cards as being part of the intellectual realm, and then the following 7 cards from the devil to the world they are in the spiritual realm. So this kind of also follows that 7-7-7 pattern, the way most times people divide up the major arcana cards. And then you have it's very interesting. You should go through it. It's a little bit of a write-up. There are no keywords here for the cards. It's a bit of a write-up, but that helps you get into the ethos of the entire deck, and it helps you really understand what the imagery is all about. So with that said, let's just get right into the flip through. We have the top and the bottom cards, which are just your standard, I call them like the cover cards. And so let's do it. Let me see if I can get my camera a little bit closer. All right, so I hope you can see better. Okay. All right. So this is your Fool card. Oh yeah, and let's just take a second to appreciate the card back. I like it, again, very much in keeping with the theme, and I like the fact that it is reversible, because I like to use reverse cards. So God, this is amazing. I like the artwork. I actually do like the artwork. I mean, this is one of the reasons, and the fantasy theme, that sort of pulled me into this deck. So let's take a moment. We have the Magician, the High Priestess. I like how we have these lovely borders, also. It's brilliant. She's doing all the magic stuff. The Empress. This is such a lovely card. And with all these swans there, do you see the little chicks? And she's pregnant. It's beautiful. All the butterflies. I love butterflies. I have this thing for butterflies. The Emperor. Does he remind you of that movie, the Scorpion King or something? Yeah. Oh. Okay. The Hierophant. Lovers. Wow. Then Chariot. Strength. I love how they've sort of portrayed they've shown a mirror here, so it's like, look into the mirror, see your inner beast kind of thing there. Yeah, it's got a good vibe. And then you have the Hermit. I know there's a very different sort of vibe for this Hermit, but I like it. It's more in keeping with the theme there. Because if you see, he appears as a kind of a beggar begging for alms, and if you go through many myths, I think a lot of Hindu myths, right? The gods will appear in the form of a beggar at the person's house, and so then the person treats them kindly and gives them whatever they have, like to eat and stuff, and then the god will bless them. But then of course they go to the other bad person's house and then they treat them bad, and obviously the god will give them a very interesting blessing again, and it's all about how you treat the poor and the needy. So it's but then sometimes gods appear in the form of the poor and needy. So it's there's a lot of those kind of stories in Hindu myths as well. So that's something very interesting. So I could kind of relate to this hermit. Then the wheel of fortune. I like this. Do you see this? This is like a mirror on one end or something. It's very intense. The cycles of life. The justice card. This is, I believe, from the cover, and on the other side you have the high priestess. It's interesting. Justice. Hanged man. Death. Check it out. It's one of those few cards that you want to sit down and take your time and look at. Temperance. Wow, I like it. Devil. Really taken the time to draw everything out, and the devil is the bad guy here. The tower. Check this out. Is this like an eye? Star. This is some of the decks. The star card is so pretty. This is one of those decks. This totally reminds you of that moment in the Lord of the Rings, right? In the forest, and that I forget her name. She comes. Of course, there is the Lord of the Rings tarot, but the moon, the illusions of the moon. Could this also be the mirror from Harry Potter? Clearly you can see how I'm spending my time these days. Fantasy is a very lovely theme. The Sun card. Judgment. The world. I like how she's surrounded by the four motifs or mythical animals, beasts, whatever they've used to depict the court cards there. So I mean, in a standard world card, you have those at the four corners. They represent different energies, and so here we have those here. This is the unicorn, the phoenix, I believe the griffin, and dragon. It's lovely. So that's your major arcana. Now let's go. This is the suit of wands. Ace of wands. I believe they have different names here for the suits. Let me check it out. Cups is chalices, pentacles is spheres, wands is books, and swords is swords. So that's how it is. So that's why the book. This is the ace of books. Two of books or wands. Now this border is different from your major arcana border. Yeah. So I don't know. Let me just check. There is a different one, I believe, for the swords and for the cups. I think yes, it's a little bit different. The colors are a little different, and obviously for the pentacles. So it's a different border each time. It's nice. All right. Sorry. Three of wands. like, and taking a moment to rest up before the journey continues. Four of Wands or Four of Books. This is so me, right? Or rather, used to be me with my head in the books. Now it's the head in the iPad reading the ebook. Okay, then Five of Wands. Six of Wands. Seven of Wands. This is interesting to see some kind of an automation type element or a character show up, but then this is a fantasy themed deck, so you can have all kinds of things happening in fantasy, but this robot type thing holding a flower, that's interesting. The Seven of Wands. See, the impressions will be a little bit different, obviously, because of the theme, right? It's not, I take back my words from before, it is not very Rider-Waite based, right? It is not. So it will take a bit of learning, even if you are into Rider-Waite, if you're familiar with the Rider-Waite and you want to pick up this deck, this is going to take a little bit of doing. But if you are into fantasy and fantasy themes, and it's something that you spend some time watching, reading, playing with, then it won't be that easy. Don't go into this deck with a frame of mind or with a structure already in your mind. Just go into this deck with adventure in your mind, with storytelling in your mind, and you will really, really enjoy this deck. The Eight of Wands or Eight of Books. Then the Nine. Again, we see the robo type character. And then the Ten of Wands. Now, see, the Page is represented as a unicorn, the Knight as the Griffin, the Queen as the Phoenix, and the King as the Dragon. Now, all your quote cards, I'm going to put these aside so we can compare them, right? Because I want to talk a little bit about that. All right, so the Suit of Swords, Ace, Two of Swords. This is again, choice. Three of Swords. This is a little different. And the Four of Swords. This is similar to the Rider-Waite-ish. Five of Swords. Wow, it's gonna fly off with the wings made out of swords, huh? The Six of Swords. See, there's a very similar vibe with the Six of Swords. Standard Six of Swords. He's rowing the boat to the other side, looking to find a way to let go of the stuff that he's got on his mind. And here, this guy's just kind of throwing away that sword into the wherever, and he's like, "Get out of my mind." That's that similar-ish vibe. And then you have the Seven of Swords, where this one is hiding the sword. There's that a little bit of trickery up there. Eight of Swords, again being bound, being stuck. Nine of Swords. And then Ten of Swords. Now again, you have the Page of Swords, Knight of Swords, Queen of Swords, and the King of Swords. And the put them aside as well. Cups. Ace of Cups. Check out those eyes. Ooh. Do we see a Templar cross in there? Is this interesting? Two of Cups. Again, this is pretty similar to your Rider-Waite. Three of Cups. There's two. So some parts are similar, some parts are not. It's interesting. I guess it's more because it's in keeping with the theme of the deck. You have your Four of Cups, that also Five of Cups. The Six of Cups. Seven of Cups. Eight of Cups. I like this. It's like after a long journey you find, water and you quench your thirst, kind of. And then 10 of Cups. I think all the 10s have all these also in there somewhere. All the 4 mythical. See, again, you have your Page of Cups, Knight of Cups, Queen of Cups, and King of Cups. Don't worry, we are going to look at them later. Now, Pentacles or Spheres, as they like to call it in this deck. Ace. Two. Three. 4. 5. 7. 8. 9. 10. Okay, now let's have a look at the court cards. I'm going to arrange them and I will be right back. Okay, so this part might be a little wobbly because this is as high as my stand can go, and since we can only see 3 rows here, the 4th row is right here. So I will try to be... Ow, sorry. This stand of mine is, as I said, wobbly. Alright, so if you see all the pages, we saw that in the book as well, all the pages are unicorns, all the knights are griffins, the queens are phoenixes, and the kings are dragons. Now if you notice, you just have your unicorn here. You probably see the environment of that particular suit there in the background, and you see the suit symbol there, but then you see just the unicorn. Same with the phoenix, the griffin with the knight, the phoenix there, and the dragon there. It's just the symbol of the suit, and then you have your creature that depicts the court card. So one of the things that, if you're a beginner, this might prove to be a hurdle for you guys to sort of get into the deck, because compared to your standard rider weight, the court cards, they don't necessarily show up as having much in terms of distinctive character traits. So like when something like this happens, since the rider weight deck is, I'm super familiar with the characteristics of the court cards that come from my rider weight. What I do is I just say, okay, Page of Wands, those are his qualities. Page of Swords, those are his qualities. Knight of Pentacles, that is his quality. The Queen of Wands, that is her quality. The Queen of Cups, that is her quality. I kind of know these characters already, and so all I do is just apply that to the image and go with it, right? I mean, that's how I do it. But then if you're a total beginner, if you're a total newbie, I wouldn't recommend that you get this deck, simply for this reason. The code cards aren't very clearly distinguished as such. I mean, once you get into it, once you have familiarity with tarot, and obviously if you love fantasy and then you pick up this deck, then just you can always apply the meanings that way. But if you're a total newbie, even though no matter how much ever you love the fantasy aspect of it, I wouldn't recommend this deck. Okay, but if you are like me, or if you're an intermediate tarot reader, or if you have a bunch of familiarity with the rider weight and you don't mind playing with other symbols and then saying, okay, so even if there's not much information coming in from here, I will use what I already know. If you can do that comfortably, then by all means, this is a deck to go for. So I mean, I totally enjoy the fantasy aspect of these cards. So I'm loving it. I'm very much loving this particular deck. Okay, so I'm totally all with this deck. All right, hang on, let me just, oops. Okay, so I'm just gathering up my cards. Just give me a second. Okay. So I love this deck, right? There are a few points about it, obviously, that make it a little hard to get into, especially if you're a beginner. But apart from that point, this is a lovely deck to have, especially if you are totally into fantasy elements. And I would totally, and so if you are a beginner who is very comfortable with rider weight imagery, or intermediate and advanced tarot readers, all of you can totally pick up this deck if the fantasy theme is something that absolutely appeals to you, and you might want to get a bag for it later on, much later. But this box is pretty good, pretty sturdy, and it can store your deck really well. So this is my review of the Epic Tarot by Scarabeo. I hope you guys like it, and I hope you guys buy it. The link, I will put a link for Amazon in the comment section. It is an affiliate Amazon link. So if you guys want, just buy from that link. And in the if you like this deck, please hit the like button. If you like this review, please hit the like button. If you have this deck and if you want to share your experiences playing with this deck, do so. Please go ahead, do so in the comment section below. I would love to hear what your experiences were doing readings with this deck. I loved it. I absolutely adored the way the images lent themselves into the whole storytelling aspect, with the fantasy. It's just like letting your imagination run wild. the imagery allows you to do that. The imagery allows you to just become a storyteller in that moment, and I just love it. In fact, if you are a writer or an aspiring writer and looking for some inspiration within the imagery of the cards to help you maybe figure some things out for your story, and especially if you're writing a fantasy based story, then this is one of the decks that I would highly recommend that you play with. So as always, please let me know your thoughts in the comments, right? And hit the like button, it always helps. Share, subscribe, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I will see you again in my next video, and until then, stay good, be good, and play with your cards. Bye.